Alright, this is Ameritocracy. It is a card game for 2 to 4 people, where each person playing the game is trying to become the President of the United States. You're going to do that by assigning your critical staff members to different headlines, as they're called. Basically, these are cards that when you claim them, they're going to earn you votes. You're going to assign your staff members to those headlines to earn those votes, and also you're going to use those same staff members as well to assign to these different teams of people that are working for your campaign that will give you certain powers and abilities. And there's also action cards and other things as well, but I'll show you how to play the game. It's actually a very, very fun game. It has a light sense of humor, if you will, but it actually manages to be kind of serious and very, in a very light way, a light satiric take on what our nation's going through right now, depending on when you watch this video. But so let me show you how to play Meritocracy, and then we'll come back here and I'll tell you exactly what I think of this sucker. All right, cool. Alright, this is Ameritocracy. This is just one side of the playing board. I set up this game right now as a 2-player game, so the other player would be on the other side of you like this. This game can easily be played with 3 or 4 players. The only difference there is these cards, these are called the headline cards, and those are the cards that you have to assign your staff to earn the necessary traction, if you will, that will earn you those votes and therefore win the game. In a 3 or 4 player game, what you'll be doing is basically think of this little little leg or whatever of cards. You're going to put this between each player. So think of it this way: if you had 3 or 4 players, like we're playing 3 players, so I had a person over here and a person over here. I would have a branch of these headline cards here and a branch of headlines cards here, and then they would have a branch of headline cards between them. And the thing is that you can only ever work on the headlines that are actually next to you. So I'd be able to work on this one and that one, but I wouldn't be able to work on the one across the table to me because I wouldn't have that actually to my side next to me. Anyway, that being said, as I said, the whole point is you're trying to claim these headline cards, because there are other ways to get votes, but this is the most common way, is that you have this like a little bit of the American Times, and Senator Strachenbach announces endorsement, and so like they would endorse you theoretically, that's the whole point is. And so if you have 5 or more staff assigned to this headline, you'll earn 1 vote. So pretty straightforward. So other cards like this one, candidate's video goes viral. It's a milestone card, and that was like an endorsement card. Now this one has 7, and you earn 4 votes, but then he says if you have staff, you can only assign to this headline if you have staff assigned to another headline. So just has a little rule in place that keeps you from assigning anything to that. You'd have to have staff assigned to either of these 2 before you could go that route. And then here we have Steven Sarberg's Big Like. 7 or votes or more required or 7 staff is needed to get the 2 votes. And then it says when you win this headline, play an action card from your hand for free. Basically what that means is, I haven't shown you an action card yet. I will. Cards cost money, if you will, in the form of cards from your hand in order to do it. So to begin the game, if you aren't the first player, you're going to have 6 cards in your hand. If you're the first player, you get 5 cards in your hand. So let me just take, let's say we aren't the first player. Let's say we're going a second. I'm going to take all 6 cards. 5, 6, yeah, perfect. From my deck. And I should mention, this campaign deck, each person's going to have a big old deck of cards like this in front of them. You can just shuffle up the deck and just deal them out. So each person gets an equal number of cards. You can do drafting. You can set up a campaign deck, like go through the cards and pick cards to set up. So there's several different ways you can do that. Do whatever way makes you happy. I personally like drafting. So when I played this game, I did the drafting rules as far as taking the cards. I have always liked games where I can draft the cards that I have access to. But anyway, so alright, so here are the different cards we have. You're going to notice some of these cards are going to say team on top like this, and some of these cards are going to say action like this. So let's talk about team cards for a moment. So team cards are going to be cards that you're going to place kind of in your area that are going to be there, and they're going to be present and available for you as long as they still have a function. I'll explain that in just a moment. So you're going to take these cards, and if you play them out as a team, it says assign a card from the top of your campaign deck to each headline you have staffed. So that's the little power that it has. Now to use that power, you have to assign a staff member to this card. And staff members that are going to be assigned to either headlines or cards that are considered team cards have to come from your HQ. Now when I explain the full way of how your turn goes, you're going to understand how that works. But you're never going to take cards unless that you have a rule, like a card that changes the rules. Like this is one of those classic games where these are the rules of the game, but if something on a card breaks the rule, you're going to use the rule that's on the card. That's a pretty standard rule in the games that we play here, but just keep that in mind. But anyway, so you're going to have staff or whatever. Like when you have a card out in front of if I have this card down in front of me like that, what happens is that when you assign a card to it, you'll notice that there's this little thing that says max of 5 right there. Now what that means is that you can use this up until the moment that you have a total of 5 staff ever assigned to it. And each time you assign even one staff to it. So if you had 5 staff cards, and you might be saying, well, how do you determine cards that are staff cards? You'll notice that on the bottom of each one of these cards, there's a little number there. And that is the number of staff that this card is worth. So it would be worth 1. Whereas, on the bottom of this one, it's 3, and so forth. So when you assign a card to a team, like this volunteer coordinators, you're going to take this card and you're going to put it underneath it. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to put it underneath it like this. And so it shows that there's 1. And so then the next time you use it, maybe you use, this card to activate it again. And you're going to be able to keep doing that until you've used it a total of 5 times. Once you've used it a total of 5 times, you're going to go ahead and discard all the cards. You're going to discard the staff that you assigned to it, and you're going to discard the card as well. Put it in your discard pile and, to the side of your deck. Now, the thing is, this is a game where if you run out of cards in your deck, you do get to shuffle up your discard pile. Anytime you do that, though, your opponent gets a vote. So it's not a great thing, but, obviously you need to have cards that you can take. So, but when you assign a card, or assign a staff to this card, you get to activate the ability. It has nothing to do with the number that's on here. If you assign a 2 to it, you don't get to do the action twice. You still only get to do it once. But you might be in a situation where, yeah, you'd want to use cards that have a 1 on them each time, so you can maximize the use of the card. But sometimes you just don't have that option. Like, you really want to use this ability, so you're going to go ahead and use like a 2, or even, do I have another 3? Yeah, or even like a 3. And cards always have 1, 2, or 3 staff members on them. So there you go. That's how that works. And then the same thing works for when you're assigning to a headline. You're just going to take your staff and you're going to place it under, like so, to show that they're under. And then you're basically racing against your opponent, because you'll notice the cards actually have it on both sides, so you can kind of see where they assign. And then whoever gets to that total first will then be able to claim it and claim the votes. I should mention briefly that on this thing, there's 2 other stats on here. So like this volunteer coordinators, there's a 3 and a 1. Now the 3 references that you have to have a minimum of 3 people assigned to your headquarters to be able to go ahead and activate this card, or to place staff onto this card. And you'll notice there's also this green 1 here. That means you have to pay 1 card out of your hand to activate this as well. So it isn't something you get to do for free. There are cards, and I'll find one here for you, like this action card. And action cards, and I'll explain those in just a second, but action cards are just one-time use cards. You flop them down, you take the action, and you discard them. But you'll notice this action card has like a 2 there, saying you have to have at least 2 staff on your headquarters, and then you have a 0, meaning it doesn't cost any cards to take that action. So action cards like this one says, put a card from your hand into your headquarters as staff. And so, like, if you took that and, like, let's, because the only way, well, let's dive into how to play the game so you can see how that works. So you have three turns on 3 things that you do on your turn. They're listed off very nicely right there on your headquarters card, and everybody gets a headquarters card. So the first one is you either recruit or draw. And very simply, either you're going to draw a card from the top of this deck, or you're going to take the top card of your deck and you're going to slide it into your headquarters to show that it is, your staff. Now, here's the thing. You don't get to look normally unless you have a card or an ability that allows you to look. You don't normally get to look at your deck to know what it is. So you have to make your intention known at that moment. You have to say, I'm going to draw a card, or I'm going to recruit a card. And so if you're going to recruit, you're going to take this card, and you can look at it and see what you may have gotten rid of. So, we would have had an action that said Money Talks. And it says, win an endorsement headline you have staffed. Oh, man, that would have been a great card, right? But we're going to go ahead and you're going to just slide it on in underneath like so. And so now you have a staff member within your headquarters that you are going to be able to then, if you want, move out into a headline, or if you play a team, you're going to go ahead and you can put a team down. Now, the second thing you do is you assign to a team or a headline. So let's say this is further into the game and I have a team. And we'll just put this volunteer coordinators out there again. So now I have the option. You don't have to. I have the option of assigning a team, a member here, to a team or to one of these cards out here. But the thing is that I don't have 3 people in my headquarters at this time, so I can't even really use volunteer coordinators. But if I wanted to, you can just go ahead and take this one out. And I'm going to go ahead, because I really want to go after this one, but I have to have another one assigned to another spot. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and put it underneath there. So to show that, yes, I've got one staff member working on getting Senator Strachenbach's endorsement, which is worth a vote. Now I get to play cards from my hand. So if I'm able to, I can go ahead and I'd be able to play cards into my hand, put teams out that I have, play actions and what have you, and then go through the process. Once I've played all my cards that I want to from my hand, then the other player gets a turn. Now, there is something kind of neat that happens. So I'm just going to grab a couple of cards from the deck over here, just randomly. And so let's say my opponent... let's say on the next turn, I go ahead and I had assigned, I got a card in my headquarters that was a 3, and I was able to slide this under there, so I've got 4 total. But let's say that my opponent on their turn claimed this particular card. They got enough votes, they got the 5 votes needed, and they were able to claim that as their own. So they would go ahead and take this headline, and they would put it with their total, and they would put a vote on, take a vote like this and place it on there to show that you got a vote. I don't have one yet. And whatever cards they used to claim it go into the discard pile. Now, the nice thing is that because I put these people to work for me on that location, but they weren't successful, I do get them back, and I get to place them in my headquarters. So I haven't lost, you don't get the double whammy of both losing those votes and also losing those cards. So I'm going to have those available to me on my turn to go ahead and send out to work on my team or what have you. And then, I'd have that process. So then after that's done, you're just going to take the top card from these headlines, and you're going to just go ahead and place it down like so. And actually this one's kind of cool, because you'll notice that it says it's a scandal. And so these little things here, like whether they're milestone or endorsement or scandal, there are other cards that will call out those particular keywords that are on there. And so you'll have things that will affect these types of cards. But this is kind of cool, where it says when you win this headline, loser pays 2 cards. So not only do you get 3 votes, the other player is then going to have to discard 2 cards in their hand to pay that off. So it's kind of a cool thing there. So the game is just going to continue like so, going through those processes, getting, getting your resource, which is basically the staffing, into your headquarters. Also, the resource of keeping cards, present in your hand, and then playing them to teams, playing them to the different cards until one person manages to get 10 votes. When one person has 10 votes, they will then win the election, become the president, and therefore win the game of Ameritocracy. This is a really cool game. They could have gone a lot of different ways at this, and I really like the way that this humor isn't just straightforward, overblown, over-the-top satire. It actually maintains a little bit of normalcy, if you will. It's it feels rooted into the theme of the game, which I really enjoy. I've always enjoyed games that where cards represent multiple different resources, and so you have decisions to make as far as what you're going to use those cards for. And it plays quickly, but it actually is kind of informative and kind of neat. And it's if you are involved in politics or interested in politics, I found myself to actually really dig the implementation of the theme. And also, it kind of prompted discussion and humorous political discussion as well with my friends. But let me talk more about all of that in my conclusion, which I will do right now. Alright, there you go. That is Ameritocracy. Okay, so you should have a really good idea of how to play the game. I'm going to tell you right now with these giant decks of cards, there's a ton of cards in here, and there's no way I could show you each and every one of the abilities and what can be done. But suffice it to say that you have a ton of stuff going on in this game, and that's why I liked the drafting aspect, because of the fact that I was able to kind of, instead of just kind of happenstance and getting a chaotic random assortment of things in my deck, I could kind of at least have a little bit of a role or a little bit of a choice as far as what my options are going to be as I played. Now, I played it, as I said, I played it randomly, just divide the deck and let's go. I also did the process of trying to build a deck as well, and and I've never been a big build a deck guy. I've always just kind of I hate trying to figure out how many of each cards I should have, that sort of thing. But they all worked and they all played really well, and so it just, I like that. I like the fact that they give you the option of all those different ways to play the game, because of the fact then, depending on what type of player you are, you can play the game the way that, best suits your methods, if you will. Now, I mentioned the light satirical tone of the game. Now, they could have gone, really full-blown, over-the-top, crazy, caricature type of funny in this game. Not to take it very seriously and just presidents make deal with Martians, gain 2 votes, or whatever. And that would have been fun, and that probably would have been a cool way to go with the game. But I really appreciated the way that the designers decided, yes, we're gonna have things like the scratching back, guy. It's it's obviously a play on words, but that that card is rooted in reality. I mean, it's we know that our politicians do trade favors back and forth, and so it is, while satirical, it isn't just full-blown gonzo, over-the-top, cartoon super villainy satirical, if you will. And I like that a great deal about the game, because I do think that whereas politics are kind of a hotbed as far as discussions between people, and I've seen way too many political discussions devolve into just unpleasantness, if you will. And I've definitely been in those conversations. I'm not above it, if you will. But I do think that when you have games like this that present, take jabs, and they aren't one-sided, I think that it can facilitate very good conversation and remarks and conversation about politics in general. And I do think that is, both a good thing, and I do also think that it is a good thing as far as just increasing the immersion in the game, and also making it more enjoyable. I always talk about the game beyond the game. I understand that the game is the reason why I'm sitting at that table at that moment. But theoretically, the person that I'm playing with is my friend. Most of the games that I play are either with my daughter, or my wife, or my friends. And so, so theoretically, the person across the table is somebody that I enjoy spending time with, and now we're engaging in a an activity where they and I can enjoy each other's company, but also have something else there to entertain us as well. And I think that's the whole point, is that now I'm like playing this game with a friend, and we can discuss politics and discuss things, and having a focus point, having something that can pull those conversations up to the level where they are noticeable, and having that moment, I think is good, and I like that. I mean, and a good game like that, like this, and this is a very, very fun game, and it is. I mentioned the mechanisms as far as the multiple uses of the cards, the different types of cards, and those things. I mean, it's like it's on the lighter side, definitely, but it is a situation where by itself, I mean, you could have made this game with no theme at all. You could just, have the abilities of the cards on them and go through the process, and the first person to 10 cubes wins. And it still would be fun. It would still be a challenge. It'd be a little bit of a race. You'd have to maintain both the number of cards in your hand that were useful. And you'd also have to maintain a certain number of cards underneath your headquarters or your card in front of you, so you'd have that resource as well. And I think that's like the crux of what this game is fun. It's because of the fact that, oh man, I have to spend cards to use this ability. Oh man, I have all these really awesome cards. I don't want to get rid of them, And so, so you have, that tough decision point, which I always enjoy in games. And I think that's like what we look for. I can't speak for you, obviously, but what I look for, and what a lot of people I know look for, is that critical decision, that tough decision where you're giving something up so you can use something right now, that sort of thing. I love that decision. But as I was getting to was that, because of this theme, it adds to the level of like immersion, it adds to the level of excitement, it adds to the level of the moment that you're playing that game. And this is definitely a situation where the theme of the game draws that discussion, draws that feeling of being a part of like that political world to the surface, and it kind of takes that over and makes the game even better than it already was. So there you go. I mean, it's highly enjoyable. It is a lot of fun. I like it with 3. This is a weird game where I know this game is probably made to be played head to head, and I think it is excellent at that. But when I played with 3, it was one of those things where it was fun to watch. Like the battles or whatever, between like, so I wanted this card and these cards to my sides, but I couldn't get those that are over there. But when you're claiming this, and then the other player has to decide if they want to combat you or the person to their right, it is this kind of wonderful moment where it's kind of like Seven Wonders. I think is that game played with 3 is like perfect, and this is the kind of same feel. And don't take that as like this is a Seven Wonders game, but as far as the competitive nature, as far as like having both I can affect both this person and that person. And then they're affecting each other as well. So like we all touch, but like they touch, together in a tangential way that I don't have any control over, kind of way. I think that this game kind of shines with 3, and I found it to be very enjoyable. And plus, then you could always make fun of the person who got no votes as being that third-party candidate that nobody ever votes for. So, all right. Anyway, there you go. That was Ameritocracy. If you have any questions about the game, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate that. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right. Bye-bye.